All right, we good.
Mhm.
All right, this is our presentation on commercial space travel. We asked ChatGPT what the pros and cons of space travel are, and this is what it's given us. And my name is Zach Daudet. All right, so determining correctness. So we felt as a group that ChatGPT did a good job providing relevant and correct information on each prompt we assigned it. In particular, the first prompt that outlined the pros and cons of commercial travel, such as SpaceX, ChatGPT was able to come up with valid arguments for both sides. Our group has slightly mixed opinions on whether or not commercial space travel will be beneficial to our society, but we do all agree that it will be a major part of space exploration during our lifetime. Companies just like SpaceX are just cracking the surface on what is to come. While most answers were relevant and provided adequate information, the third question on how commercial space travel will affect the upper to middle and lower class people individually lacked depth. ChatGPT did a good job giving broad generalizations based on societal norms. However, it lacked any coherent argument on feelings and attitudes each class would have towards space travel. While it is true that not only wealthy individuals will be able to afford while it is true that only wealthy individuals will be able to afford space travel for now, it made the argument that middle and lower class people would not be interested in space travel, which we do not agree with. We believe that the excitement space travel occurs within all types of socioeconomic classes, not only the top percent.
And the moral and ethical considerations that ChatGPT used when making these decisions, especially surrounded topics of environmental issues, as far as like the fuel usage, waste, reusing the engines, and just like all that's or all the environmental issues. And then the cost, which includes like tax, kind of figuring out how they're going to be able to afford a mass production of rockets or transportation vehicles for the space travel. And also the cost kind of considers the exclusion of the lower classes, as Zach touched on in the last slide, when talking about how the lower and middle classes wouldn't be as interested. That's not necessarily true. It's just they wouldn't be able to afford it. So it would be more of something that only a few can experience, but many might have to pay for it. And the hazards was a very important topic with potential crashes, any sort of material coming off the rockets, landing, everything like that. And then also people being able to handle the G's that are pulled when they're taking off and landing as well. That's something that ChatGPT has to consider, and people making this decision to bring commercial space travel into society have to make. The utilitarian would not agree because overall our society is not ready for it. When considering the environmental impact, resource allocation, and potential benefits do not weigh the cost for it to become what it can be at this time. Our society and our technology is not efficient enough to sustain commercial space travel, and it is almost pointless outside of vacations. And it's not like we have inhabited other planets yet to travel back and forth. A deontologist would technically agree with it based on the categorical imperative, but would be very difficult finding funding without abusing tax money, which at that point would use people as a means to an end, which goes against the terminology that follows deontology or the main rule behind it, and therefore would then cause a deontologist to not agree with it. And then our own personal values towards it, we struggle to find means justifiable that would make it possible in today's society.
And for the discussion of the commercial space travel and private privatization of ethical dilemmas, some of the pros and cons. Privatizing space exploration offers benefits like increased innovation and competition, cost savings, and economic growth. Private companies operate flexibly, responding rapidly to market needs, fostering global collaboration, and advancing international space projects. But however, there are concerns about safety compromises, unequal access, and short-term profit focus, and potentially national security risks are at risk. And then achieving a secure, sustainable future in commercial space requires a careful balance between regulatory oversight and private enterprise. And with the ethical dilemmas of utilitarianism and the Cation ethics, in order to address worldwide gaps in space access, utilitarian challenges in space explorations arise from balancing individual risks with social benefits. According to Kant, dilemmas of ethics involve protecting human dignity in the face of profit-driven temptations and carefully allocating space resources in order to fulfill moral and environmental commitments. These ethical dilemmas require a careful balancing act between financial benefits, environmental benefits, and moral concerns in order to align commercial space operations with more values and the well-being of people.
Finally, we have the discussion on societal and cultural impacts that commercial space travel has on our world today. So after going through the pros and cons of commercial space travel and the ethical dilemmas involved in that, we decided to look more into the impacts it would have on an international, national, and societal level. And ChatGPT did a really good job kind of breaking it down into all three categories. I believe as it went from international, national to societal, it kind of got more specific as it went down, and it had better examples as we got more narrow into focusing. Although in the initial international and national levels, it did have very important information and very relevant information that could be associated with commercial space travel, like for example, economic growth, national security, global collaboration and competition. Those are all great examples of how commercial space travel impacts not only people as individuals, but nations and states altogether. After asking ChatGPT that question, we decided to kind of focus even more into individuals, into how it impacts a society, especially our society as a whole. So we asked what might upper, middle, and lower class civilians have to say about commercial space travel, and what actions might they take, and how can they get involved. And just like the previous question, it broke it down into each class, kind of giving us a rundown of what they can expect. For upper class, it's more of an exclusive, exciting venture that they can go on. They will be more invested and have more money and time to put into this new area of adventure. The middle class would have a mixed review. Some would advocate for it, and some would believe it wouldn't be as necessary because they wouldn't have as much access to it. It will, however, increase the focus on STEM in education as a practice, and it would also create public discussions on space travel. And for the lower class, they aren't affected as much. They won't have as much access, and they will be more focused on current events and current issues that they're dealing with, not as much on space travel. Overall, we believe that ChatGPT did a really good job dissecting our questions. However, in parts, it did lack depth, and we believe that our analysis on ChatGPT's overall view on this topic was very helpful and insightful. Thank you.